Okay, ready. Roll sound.
Yeah, let me just get the script
Arun
up.
Chaudhary, Committee Program
All right.
Promo Take 1. And 3, 2, 1.
Fire. From the cane fields to the factories, wherever you go in equatorial Fredonia, fire makes it good. It's the same with Cadre cigarettes. It's fire that give Cadres their
No, it's
toasted
fine,
flavor
really.
and bitter aroma. Cadre cigarettes and you on fire. Sponsors of the committee program. New episodes dropping Sunday evening starting February 13th and running through Bastille Day. Look, as we've discussed, it's going to be the same quality programming you know and love, but more of it. So we can find something you hate, maybe, because that's how you make them say no. That's how you negotiate. Everybody knows that. You make them say no. We have no negotiators on the left. That's part of the problem. But we do have a fantastic update today, courtesy of the show's own deputy director, Julia Doubleday, from Barbara Sepulveda, one of the founding beings of the new Chile. And thank you for sticking around. We know you have many options for content to consume, and we appreciate that you've picked the committee program. Here we go.
This is the committee program with Arun Chaudhary, Julia Doubleday, Forrest, Lovette, Fiamma, Meli, Xhevat, Kastrati, and yours truly, Jacopo Castelletti. We now join the program, already in progress.
Hi, welcome back to the committee program. Look, we always say we're going to follow up with people, and then we don't always. But this time, we actually, on the case of Chile, we have followed up thanks to Julia Doubleday, who is now back from South America. Julia, what's on tap?
So we have Barbara Sepulveda joining us for a second time. As y'all may remember, she is a delegate to the Constitutional Convention. She's a constitutional lawyer and professor. We're super happy to have you here. And of course, the thing on everybody's mind is that Chile has had the presidential runoff election. And why don't you go ahead and tell us what happened in your runoff?
What happened since when? Since the elections?
Yes. Well,
Just in case somebody didn't get the news.
Yeah.
In case somebody didn't get the news.
Yes.
You can deliver
Tell
it.
us who won the election and how we should feel about it.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me again. Well, I'm very happy because Gabriel Boric won the elections, and that makes us winners. And it's so I'm so thrilled about with how many people voted for us. It was crazy because now Gabriel Boric, he's the first, the youngest president in our history, but also he's the most voted since the democracy, since, the dictatorship, and so the democracy started again. So we're very proud of that. I think something happened. We were talking about, Julia, how it makes us very scared about how the far right in Chile was growing, and with this hate speech and making a lot of this campaign against communism, against leftists, against feminism, and so that speech didn't win, and that's something I think we have to celebrate.
Absolutely.
So we are very happy. Finally, we have a new president. That means also that Sebastián Piñera is just in his last month. We have the new government begins in March 11th. So. That means that Sebastián Piñera has only like a month and a half for his government, and he will be remembered as the worst president ever. He violated human rights. He just aggravated all the bad lives that we were living here, about health, education, social security, that we have none of that. So we think this is so I don't know how to say that, but this means something that is huge for us, for Chileans. We have the new constitution coming. We have this new government. We're going to be there 4 years. So it's huge.
Yes, we're also excited for you. And I want to delve a little bit into the priorities of the new government as well as what's going to happen with the Constitutional Convention. Before we do that, though, I just want to rehash a little bit more, what was on the line with this election and the opponent that Boric had. So when I was there for the first round of the election, Jose Antonio Cast, the far right-wing candidate, actually placed first in the first round of the election, which was super surprising and also upsetting for a lot of people. So can you tell us a little bit about the context there? Like, who is this guy? And do you think that it's possible that him being first in that first round election, could that have been a motivating factor for why so many people came out to vote for Boric?
Does he have that critical 20%, kind of reach that keeps you relevant when you're in opposition?
Well, I think, he's, how you say it, is the far right candidate. Cast is, I'm sorry about my cats,
Cat.
Never
be sorry about cats on the program.
We like the cat.
Extraordinarily pro cat.
It's happening again. Well, Cast, he founded the Republican Party here in Chile. He won the first round because we were talking about how Jose Antonio Cast represented this very conservative sector of the Chilean right. But the Chilean right is very divided. They don't have clear leaderships that you can just say, there are two different rights just arguing with two different models of politics and just to offer to our country. They're just they've been so wounded with the Sebastián Piñera's government that I think that hit very hard on them. So they are very, very divided. In that scenario, it's where Jose Antonio Cast arrives with a more strong leadership and authoritarian speeches, and he's trying to follow this manual that we talk about in the last program. We talk about how he follows these lines, and you can see all these kind of far-right leaderships just acting and performing these manuals, like Bolsonaro in Brazil, like Trump, like Le Pen, you name it. It's happening in the world. So we were very worried about that. I'm a feminist, I'm a communist, and we were threatened by them. He put in his government program, he offered to eliminate every leftist, radical leftist, and chase us, imprison us in this alliance that he was offering with international governments and alliances that will chase communists, chase radical leftists, chase feminists, and that was very upsetting. So we were very worried about ourselves, our families, but also the future of our country. And I think that, of course, it had an effect on the elections. When he won the first round, he won, but not for that much, but it was like a wake-up call for all of us. So you could see how the left and the center left in Chile was very divided, very separated. Mm-hmm. all of us had our candidates. So when we saw this, I think that make us just talk more and agree more. And so we have this. It was a very hard hit. So we think that something like that happened, but along the parties, that's something that hit parties. It's not the sign that or the wake up call that happened with the citizens. So we think what happened and why Boric won the second round. So with so many votes, like he's the most voted president ever. So we think that happened because for citizenship, Cast doesn't represent this new era, this new country with social rights, with access to this minimum life conditions that we need here in Chile, because we were the neoliberal laboratory of the world, and that has cost us lives. So I think something happened where Cast just continued to be this authoritarian leader, and Boric, on the other hand, he was this hopeful leader, and he was showing people that we need to be hopeful about the future, that he's gonna bring health, social security, care for people, for children, for the most excluded of our system. And he's an ally for us, for feminists. And I think that speech, it was the right way to go. And for me, sometimes it wasn't very comfortable to see how, maybe he wasn't, I don't, just let me put it this way. He's very charismatic, and he's always talking about hope and joy, and how the future needs this thoughts, this positive vibes to just walk together, and we need dialogue, we need to join in this hopeful future. And that's very inspiring, but also for us, for the Communist Party, for the Socialist Party, the threat of José Antonio Cast, it was hard for us to just talk about hope when you can see our lives threatened all the time. So, so I think it was the right way to go, because these are the results, but also it was hard to just go and talk about hope when you had the José Antonio Cast
constantly putting on that sort of happy face of the future.
And now my happy face is for real.
You talk about these, these hope for this massive, progressive, transformational change in the nation, and of course, expectations do hit reality. And we know so much of the work that you're doing with the Constitution is where the mechanisms to make that reality happen will come from. So what is the landscape now before the Constitution gets finished, but while President Boric is trying to deliver on some of what he's promised, but without the full deck of cards, shall we say?
Well, we began our second period. We had 1 year to create a new constitution. So we had 6 months already passed on 4th of January. So we elected another president and vice presidents of the Constituent Assembly. Also, I was appointed as one of the VPs of the new head board.
Congrats.
That's excellent.
Thank you. That was yesterday. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think now we have being Boric elected, it's a little different. I hope it's going to be different than what we had with Sebastián Piñera. With Sebastián Piñera was like an obstructionist all the time. He didn't give us all the resources that he could. He has a constitutional obligation to do this. And he didn't mind. He just wanted us to fail, and that is noticeable. So now we're hoping that with this new government that begins in March, we're gonna have more guarantees to work. That's as simple as that. We don't see the relationship with the government as something that is gonna like intervene in our process of debates about constitutional norms. We just see that this is a guarantee to for us to work till the end in more in better conditions. Actually, it's been very hard, very hard. So now we're hoping that this scenario it's going to be more. It's going to be better for us to just work with no worries about the resources, about the relationship with the government, that all these tensions, they were continually just going and public, just talking on media, just talking about, oh, this is so worrying. They're discussing this and that, and just trying to intervene politically. And we are two different powers, and we are the constituent power, and they're
Right.
now they represent something that maybe it's going to be in the past of our Republican history. So, well, I'm seeing with very good eyes that what is happening and what that means for us in the Constituent Assembly.
So, what are some of the priorities for Boric as he's taking office? What do you think is going to be sort of like the first couple things that his government is focused on?
First 100 days.
First 100 days, yeah, that's what we call it.
Yeah, first 100 days, we call it that. So he has this 53 things that they're gonna do in government. In the first, we have something we had to do here because probably we are all suffering the same. I mean, the economy and how that has affected the pandemic, how that has affected our employment, and especially for women. So one of the measures is creating 50,000 jobs for women. That's going to be a measure that is very focused on us because we have suffered the most of the
The economic hardships.
Yeah, job loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for us for women here in Chile, it's been very hard to just go and find jobs again. And so they're gonna create this 50,000 jobs for women. Also, we are now seeing something that what's happening here with social security, that I'm always saying, like, we don't have a social security system. We just have, and a pension. It's a private pension system. So now for older people here in Chile, it's very hard to survive. Chile is a very expensive country, so they have pensions that go for like half of the minimum wage, and you cannot survive with that. So it's one of the measures. It's going to be like leveling up these pensions for all older people that now it's pensioned, because that's like very urgent. And in the way that we are going, of course, in the Constitution, trying to build a security system, a social security system. So those are measures that I think they're very marked with the pandemic effects. So that because that it's something that's urgent. But we have 53 different measures that the government's gonna do. Not in the first 100 days, of course, all the 53, but those are like the things that...
Priorities.
I think we have time for one more question because we promised that we would let you go on the hour. But I guess, like, what especially for our American audience who are, we've had this Constitution that we hold sacred in this, fetishistic sort of horrible way. Like, what are some of the interesting sticky points that you all are debating and working on, and as you are going through this difficult process of consensus-oriented democracy building? Can you just tell us what are some of the processes in motion in the Constitutional Assembly?
Well, we have this noticeable tension between progressive parties and movements that are represented in our assembly, with the far right and the center right and conservative. Those are for the American audience. We have to explain that those are not very representative sectors in our assembly because they're minorities now. So I think they're trying to create this this sense of with media, of course, along their side, that we are very in a very hard tension in this progressive agenda. Especially with feminist issues, especially with abortion and sexual and reproductive rights, and of course how quotas and parity it's gonna affect our democracy, because they have this liberal speech about so many things except feminist things. So it's more like we have the liberal sectors here are very liberal in economic issues, but not in
Not social,
not women's rights or sexual diversity rights. So they're very conservative in those issues. So I think for us it's going to be very hard to just try to create this or trying to fight this agenda they have with the media, and it's the same agenda that Cast had with the presidential elections. They're gonna continue just arguing that abortion is murder, and that sexual and reproductive rights is not something that it's urgent or necessary. So they have this, they have their agenda, and they're trying to build this new constitution very likely to what we have already here. They don't believe in direct democracy mechanisms. They don't believe in referendums. They think that we need to have this presidential, hyper presidential system that we have here. That it was built for Pinochet,
right?
It was built for him because he thought that he was going to be the dictator and then he was going to be the president. So it was built for him. Now we're talking about different kinds of democracy, with more participation, with children voting, with people discussing very important issues and having decisions to make with their votes, but also participating in trying to create a more horizontal democracy.
Yes.
So that's going to be a tough fight, I believe, there. But just let me say this again. They are a minority, but they have the media. So I think our first challenge in this new directive, with this new directive, is going to be communications.
Yeah.
The narrative.
How we communicate, this to people.
Yeah.
Some of the debates are very are very technic
Technical?
technical.
Yeah.
So it's hard sometimes to follow up how these debates are devolving.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say the thing we find. Oh, sorry. It sounds like you're trying to land the plane, so I'll just say something really quick, and then I'll throw it to you. But the thing, especially campaigning, that we do find, right, is that the promise of a better future always falls slightly short of losing the things you already have, and that tying progress to the status quo, it is just becomes a real challenge in communications.
Yeah, and because it's their speeches are built on fear, so you have to be afraid of feminism, be afraid of communism. They're trying to install here that Chile is gonna become Venezuela, is gonna become China or Cuba or whatever. They always do that. They've been doing that
they
before.
do that here.
Yeah, 20
They do it
or
everywhere.
30, yeah. So I think Chileans are not falling into that anymore. It's hard. It's been hard, but for most of the people, they're just tired of hearing those things and seeing that none of those things that they promised that it was going to happen, and it's like all our economy is going to fall with this decision, with that other decision, and that never happens. And also, the rich people here in Chile, that they don't pay taxes. This is like a heaven for them. So
Yeah.
we know they're not gonna leave the country, even
Oh, yeah.
even if we make them pay taxes.
Yeah. They
That's
threaten us with that too. That's why we need an international. There should be nowhere for them to go to not pay taxes.
Yeah, well,
That's the dream.
yeah, they're taxes paradises and stuff, but that happens.
Yeah.
Also. Here in Chile, we need them to pay taxes. I know that the same happens in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right that, people are afraid of change, but I think at this point, we're seeing these radical left wing, but also radical right wing people rising to prominence and to power. And our media has really been repeating over and over again, I don't understand, like, why is extremism happening? Like, these two things are extremism. And I think ultimately, people are now becoming more afraid of the present than they are of change. I mean, the present is just getting so scary with climate change and the pandemic that at some point, as many papers as you sell that say things are pretty good right now, if people aren't experiencing that, at some point they don't believe you anymore. So I think that's also part of the sort of collapse of trust in our institutions. And, we're having this insane COVID surge right now. Just absolutely bananas, and our media is very much carrying water for Biden and saying this is just how it has to be, even though this isn't happening in other places. That's why I'm quarantined in my friend's house right now. I'm not in DC, so it's wild over here.
I'm quarantined as well.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Very responsible. We have no rules here. They're just like we don't have. You don't have to be vaccinated to fly, and you don't have to have a test to fly. So everyone's just getting on the plane. And we just had the holidays, and all of the flights are getting canceled because so many flight staff are getting COVID. And then we recently had this scandal. Sorry, we're going off topic a little bit here, but I just think that everyone in the world should know how crazy the U.S. is. We recently had this scandal where the CDC, our official Center for Disease Control, the CEO of a major airline went to the CDC and said, we can't fly our planes anymore because our whole staff is sick. And the CDC said, okay, we're going to change the rule. When you get sick, instead of quarantining for 10 days, you only have to quarantine for 5 days now. And you don't need a negative test to go back to work. In fact, don't even take the test. So just in order to keep the airlines running, our official government arm that is supposed to control disease changed the rule for the CEO of Delta. So everyone online is freaking out about this, but also making very funny memes about it, which is really the only thing we have at the end of the world.
Left.
It's all the funny
Only
memes.
thing we have left here.
Yeah, it's the only thing we have left. So it's really crazy. I mean, like, I don't get on a plane in the U.S. That's all I advise people
So
to
we
do.
turn to you and your new constitution for our hope as
Yeah, yeah.
well, because we need new ways.
Yeah,
we
really
need new
do.
ways.
We're struggling. All right. Well, thank you so much. I know we kept you a few minutes late. So thank you. And please, I hope you can come back again and keep us posted on what happens with the Constitution, because we're so excited for you guys and to hear about the progress that's going to be happening over the next couple years.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.